All right, let's move on forward with the town council work session for Monday, July the 16th. We're gonna skip over one for the time being, and we'll go directly to number 2 for the update on the property maintenance code, derelict building structures. Town attorney and the director of planning and zoning. Who wants to go first? You, Doug, or Jeremy?
Jeremy.
Want to come up and kind of coach some information out of Doug?
He put together a pretty good report or update. Back on June 19th, we went to Winchester as you requested and met with the city officials there about their programs, I should say, on their derelict structures, vacant properties. And of course, they've been known over the last decade at least to have a pretty successful program. We talked to them about their property maintenance and rental inspection program, which they have 4 inspectors. We talked about their tax abatement program, vacant building registration program, or graffiti program. Of those, the town of Front Royal has the authority to enact any of those. And however, right now we just have the graffiti abatement program, and so that does be used here off and on each year. That's where we can pay people to paint over and fix graffiti problems that arise in the town. The blight tax abatement program, that's their incentive program, which they felt was pretty important for addressing certain properties, because it gives the developers an incentive to come in and try to fix up these old structures. They said, though, the linchpin of their whole program was the property maintenance and rental inspection program. And they felt without that, they would just not have the tools really to get a lot of things done. One thing that they utilized was a community resource team, which I think is pretty innovative, by getting all the different departments together and working as a team towards these issues. If we're not going to move forward with the property maintenance and rental inspection code, that's maybe one thing I would recommend we pursue. We may have some results on that in some of the properties in the town.
Is that a key that you're mentioning, is the property maintenance rental code?
They stressed
the
that
key.
throughout our conversation with them, was the property maintenance and rental inspection program were the key, really, to make everything kind of work together.
And that would have to be townwide? You know, we had talked about it before in a certain area.
The property maintenance code would have to be townwide.
Gotcha. Okay.
The rental inspection program would have to be a specific geographic area, sort of what the planning commission had put together around the county where we have a lot of the rentals. So that's more, that's the way the state code says you have to adopt.
Is that going to be our first step?
Well, that's up to council.
I mean, is that
Not going direction from you, but if you really want to tackle the issue and make the commitment, that, based on our research discussion with Winchester, that is the way to go.
I would point out that one. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask a question on the property maintenance and rental. I understand the rental portion of it, but what is the property maintenance? I mean, I read this, is that all interior, can it be exterior as well? Or does that come under another whole complete heading for the exterior building that's ready to fall down as well as the inside exterior? Now, does the rental, I know the rental, you can go in and tell them they got to do whatever. But what about the building in general, unless you do the actual, the first part here that you just talked about, as far as the dilapidated buildings and all that?
That's the key difference, because they're both using the same codes. The difference with the rental inspection is that you have the right through that program to go enter on someone's premises, and if they don't allow you, you have the right to get a warrant.
Yeah, but going back to the property maintenance, does that include in and out? And would that come under the
99% of the time.
dilapidated building issue and things of that nature, or just a building that's being rented that needs repair on the outside? A lot of the dilapidated buildings we have are buildings that are not occupied.
The property maintenance code would apply to any building, whether it's vacant, occupied, commercial or residential, but it does, we wouldn't have the right to go in the building, so it's only
exterior
gonna,
only.
it's only gonna be things we can observe from the exterior.
Right, and then the rental is the inside.
That's going inside, but that's only for rentals. We
That's
can't
my
do-
question, just for the rentals, right?
I would point out one thing that Winchester, on their community resources team, one thing that helps when you have that is they utilize their social services department and their police department, because they're working on the ground with people, and because they're often inside people's homes, they can see problems in the real world, and they can alert planning and zoning to problems, because they have the lawful right to be inside homes. And Winchester advised that when you start off enforcing derelict and blighted buildings, to start off being reactive, because at first people aren't used to dealing with this kind of a program, so you don't want to go in it too hard charging at first. So just kind of do it in incremental steps until people get used to it. So by having this community resources team, and you see the problems firsthand, address those first, and get people used to the fact that you're going to be dealing with it on a sort of case-by-case basis as you see the problems arise, before you get too proactive with it.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. A lot of other communities do that as well. Do it more on a complaint basis. Just because of limited resources, they don't have the staff to go around, be proactive as much as they could be.
So does that
We
mean if
can
the house,
set those policies ourselves on how we want to administer it.
so that means the house comes available to rent? We're not gonna look at it at the moment, we're just gonna do a case-by-case complaint driven?
That's what the property maintenance goes. On the rental inspection program, you have to do periodic inspections.
Well, I think
That
council's
would be
looking-
somewhat more progressive.
I think council's looking for some guidance on how to start this thing, how to get it revved up and get it on the road. It's not gonna be overnight, that's for sure. Talking about the property maintenance rental program, if that's something that we need to put in place first, then, you know, we can use, as an example, the Afton Inn. You know, how do you approach a property owner that has that building, which we have it now, but how would we approach if that was a target that the council wanted to be done with and gone? Where does it all start? Does it start with the property maintenance?
That's, from Winchester's experience, that's what it sounds like to me. The other thing, I reached out to the county building official, David Bean, and he gave me some names of private companies that did property inspections. And I can get more detailed information if town council wants me to, like what do they charge to do those services.
I guess the big question tonight, since we've gotten this far, is council still willing to go that extra mile to move forward with these things, because it's going to be a budget impact, and you know, is council ready to keep moving with this?
What's the budget impact?
Well, you're going to have somebody, you're going to have an inspector and other stuff that associates. I think, what did Joe, when he come up with maybe 150,000
Yeah,
last year?
We took a stab at it. You know, we really don't know right now.
Yeah.
We're talking maybe one staff member, 1.5. You know, Jeremy could probably elaborate more. He's been on the ground on that one a little bit longer.
When the planning commission put together the backup, the proposal, they felt that 1.5 was kind of the minimum to have a system operated by the town.
Mhm.
And that was about,
2 is what we discussed.
well, it was 2 people.
That's if you have the rental inspection program.
Yeah. Correct.
Well, you're gonna have to have not only the inspector, you gotta have a secretary, you gotta have an office, you gotta have an automobile, you
What'd
gotta
they come
have
up with, money
quite a
wise?
few other issues. not
The
just
first
an
year was a little bit
individual.
more because you have to buy some equipment and books and get started. So if I remember correctly, that was about 150,000, like Joe said, for the first year.
I thought we
Two people.
discussed 200,000.
And it could have been,
Well, I
somebody might have
think
said.
before it's over, that's what it was going to be. Because if you go, again, I mean, we're just doing the very minimum, even considering 150, an employee, a secretary, and when you add all the other amenities there, you're looking at quite a bit of money. But my feelings right now is, we need to get Doug and Jeremy and I guess the planning commission to come up with an actual ordinance that we feel that it's what we need and what we want, whether it's equal to Winchester or Culpeper or whoever. Because I think before we even start, I know we got some things already in the middle. We need to get something that's already approved by us before we begin talking about hiring people and doing these things. You can't hire the person then write the ordinance. You need to make sure you got the ordinance we looking at, trying to enforce, and then we find a way to fund it and get the people on staff to get it implemented in the field. That's the way I'm looking at it.
It's already been done.
Because for me, just directly say, oh yeah, let's go with it, no, I'm not in favor of doing that at all.
It's already been done.
Until we know exactly where we're headed and where our results are gonna be.
Chris?
I was telling Gene it's already been done. We already have that ordinance.
Well, we haven't, but we haven't proved anything, we haven't done anything
Right,
like
we
that.
voted it down.
So I'm saying, if we're interested, we need to make sure we got something that we can use to get moving.
You know, this is not gonna be just something taken lightly. You know, this council needs to step up to the plate. And if we're gonna do this property maintenance and the derelict and the buildings, it's gonna be costly. And we're not gonna recover.
So it's doing nothing.
Exactly. And we're not gonna recover nowhere near the funds that we're gonna be outlaying. Is it gonna be good? We've been talking about getting rid of these buildings for years, and Afton Inn was probably the biggest derelict building there is, and we just haven't owned it, but, you know, through the good graces of EDA and working with them, trying to get somebody in there, now we've got somebody that's gonna be renovating it, so, but now we have other structures that are boarded up. I just don't wanna keep having staff moving forward with more information if council doesn't see any future in this. John? I know you're a short timer, I know that, but still.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, I mean, I was not in favor of the rental inspection district when it came up before us earlier, it was either early this year or late last year. And I still feel the same way about it. I think that the same problems are there. So I forget if we actually voted or not. If it did vote, I believe we'd have to wait until the year has gone by before we could bring that back up before us again. Unless someone on the prevailing side decided to reconsider it. But at the same time, like I haven't changed my mind on it. So, I mean, that's where I am as far as bringing that back out. I still think that there are a ton of problems with the way that the ordinance is written. I think in particular, it hurts good property owners that have good landlords, along with people who are potentially problematic. I'm curious if we're going to put together like a community team to try and handle some of the things with whatever's already in place on the books, what that would look like. I know that here in the report, it says that they're including planning and zoning, police, public works departments, EDA, and their own commissioner of the revenue. It sounds like some of those things, I'd be more curious to pursue that line and see what that would look like exactly without going down the route of the rent inspection district again.
Gary?
I just have, my question is, I guess, for Doug. Going the rental inspection route, we will need to hire a building official, correct? if we were gonna do that, or would Mr. Bean handle that for us?
I don't know if he'd be willing to do it. I
Yeah.
suspect we'd have to hire
We'd
someone.
end up having to hire somebody for that.
That would be my guess.
Because I'm thinking it's gonna be very expensive to get these third-party inspectors
I'm sure they.
to come out for the inspections
I'm sure they would
aspect of
charge
it.
a fair amount, yeah.
Yes.
You have to hire a property maintenance official. And we could designate building official as the county, but we don't have to hire our own building official.
Bill?
Or do? Don't or do?
We don't have to.
Bill?
If we do this, you're committing another $250,000 to the budget next year. And our finance director has already told us that we got a very flat increase next year in budget, so I'm very concerned about that. Tax abatement is going to add additional dollars to it. I'm a little concerned about this rental designated area. You know, I personally think if you're gonna do this, when you got 45% of your buildings are rentals anyway, it's not just one district or one area, it's town-wide. So I have some real concerns.
Jake?
So did we put money aside in the budget already, PJ?
Yes, sir. We have fiscal year 19, we have $40,000 set aside if we were to go with the, I guess at the time we were thinking about doing a joint position with the Northern Shenandoah Regional Commission.
And then in 18, did we have any money put aside? 17?
We did, but we used that on, we pulled it out of there and used it on a project, and I cannot remember the project.
Yeah, so we did put money aside for it. Couple questions. Jeremy, you can put the property maintenance ordinance in effect without the rental inspection.
Correct, you can.
Okay. And so the real thing is the concern about the cost of the rental inspection program, right?
That's, if you're taking more of a complaint basis on the property maintenance code, the way we had originally proposed it, the rental inspection program will take a lot more effort, a lot more time and staff
It's what
resources.
needs manpower
Correct.
behind it. Okay. The Community Resource Committee that the City of Winchester set up, that wasn't in lieu of a particular program. That was as part of their total property maintenance rental inspection program, right? Like in other words, we wouldn't just establish a Community Resource Committee without having the ordinance or rental inspection program in place.
I think you could.
But they would have no teeth to act on it.
And they could review the drafts we have and make recommendations or whatever your directive is to them.
But they wouldn't have anything to act on, right? Like there wouldn't be an ordinance in place for any kind of enforcement. So they could make a recommendation, but we couldn't do anything about it.
Well, they can make recommendations on the ordinance and the tax abatement program, kind of reviews it. We could invite like a representative from the landlords to come in, because that was one of the issues that we dealt with when we were reviewing the original ordinance, is the landlords, get them at the table, see what we can do to.
So that the Community Resource Committee could
More
get them to
palatable.
the table and say, we don't like your building, and they can say, too bad, and walk off. Just, right? Because there's nothing to get them to do anything different.
Right, but that's why the Winchester was like, you've got to have a property maintenance code, or you really don't have any of the tools you need to enforce all this stuff.
So we need the property maintenance code to make it happen. The real sticking point seems to be the rental inspection program and the total cost that there would be. Sounds like there's opportunities where we could outsource parts of it, or if we're doing it case by case. So one of the questions I had too is, we write the rental inspection program. Could it not be something that we implement that is very, for lack of better words, very loose to start with, so that it alleviates all the concerns that are there, and only enforce, I think you were just mentioning, like when officers are in and out of homes and they notice that there is a structure that poses problems, that be a case-by-case thing that is dealt with through the rental inspection program. In other words, it isn't so strictly written that we're having to enforce every single rental that we have, but rather ones that are just identified as needed. Does that make sense?
You can't do that.
Well, I mean, under.
You can be a little more selective in how you enforce a property maintenance code, but the rental inspection code, there's a little bit of give, like on your fees, you might be able to do an inspection like every other year, but you're gonna have to follow the state code. It's very more precise on how you enforce the rental inspection code because it infringes on people's property rights more.
But you could designate how often you're actually inspecting rentals. Or if you're inspecting the rentals, or if you have need to inspect the rentals. Do you have to say you're gonna be inspecting them every 5 years, or can you say, when we see your porch falling off,
You may
we're
have
gonna
to do it
inspect your
every year,
rental?
I have to check on that. Most people do it every year. I have to check the language just to see if there's a way to spend it like for 5 years. But I know you have to do it periodically on a regular schedule. I think it's annually now.
Okay.
So it's a lot more intensive. That's why the planning commission had originally set it to the smaller geographic area because you wanted to kind of, originally we were talking about trying to keep it as small as possible. Planning commission felt you had to have the rental inspection program to really be effective on some of the housing issues we were having.
That makes
And
sense.
we still have.
So the only other question I have then is the rental inspection program still wouldn't deal with the more commonly known buildings that are outside of that district that we would consider dilapidated buildings, right? So how are those going to be dealt with?
Well,
Without calling out those buildings specifically?
we'll be able to address things we can see on the exterior.
Through the property maintenance code?
Through the property maintenance code. We can't force them to make it unvacant if they don't want to occupy it. But we can get them to improve, the structure where the soffit's falling down and degrading and rotting and replace windows. Right now, really all we can do is get them to board up the building. Unless
So with
it's
the-
an extreme circumstance.
So then, I guess what I'm getting at, and maybe I'm just making this way too simple, then, forget about the rental inspection program. We implement a property maintenance program under the new code that we're allowed to enforce, and then address the buildings, handful of buildings that we need to address to start this program without the rental inspection. Is that possible to do?
That is possible, yeah, that's something we've considered.
So why
Because
doesn't
the
that
planning
go
commission
start?
ultimately decided, again, to do the rental inspection, because they felt that was necessary. But if you wanted to keep it smaller and start smaller, that would be a way to do it.
Well, I think everybody here, what I'm hearing around the table is the cost is the biggest concern. So if we're able to implement property maintenance and start small with some of the more serious dilapidated buildings at a minimal cost, I would be in favor of something like that.
That would be the Culpeper approach.
Gary?
That was my
Okay,
question.
Gene? Next.
Well, we've been talking about this thing for a couple of years or longer. And we're no closer now, I don't think, than we were before. My biggest issue right here tonight is the financial. We got a police department, and we're looking at 10 million plus. We're looking at Leachman Parkway, we're looking at all these financial burdens we've already had. And now tonight we're gonna look at another $500,000 on item number 1 for a radio system for the police department. Guys, we can't keep spending money we don't have. And we can't keep adding more money because nobody wants to raise taxes. And all of this money that you're referring to here and there, it's got to come out of the general fund. It doesn't come out of enterprise funds. And the way you get that money is through taxes, real estate taxes, meals taxes, and all the other taxes that we collect on a yearly basis. We couldn't even get a 1% tax this year to help fund the police department through this cash. So why in the world we keep sitting here talking about adding more money when we don't even have enough people on here that's willing to even bring a penny on board in our last budget to do anything? I mean, I think we're just throwing money out for the window if we're not going to enforce it properly. Either do it, but I want to find out how are we paying for the amount of money that we've already allocated. We've talked about that when we just let it blow it by the wayside. We keep talking about the EDA and the tax credits and all this thing. We have not come up with a way to fund this. We gotta find a way to fund what we want first before we keep adding more. We can't keep adding and not knowing where we're going. We're bad as federal government in a lot of ways. They want to fund everything, but they don't know where the money is. They go borrow it from China or whoever, and they can print more money. We can't do that. We gotta have a set goal on how we're paying this money back, and it's gotta come from our taxpayers in some way. I don't know how, but some way. And right now, financially, we've already allocated somewhere in the neighborhood of around $20 million that we don't know how we're gonna pay it back yet. We've got great ideas of the tax credits, but we don't know for sure that that's ever gonna come to reality. The way things are going now, I question some of those things that we thought we already had everything okay. But now there's things that's coming up that I believe that which I can't even say anything about it, but there's issues coming up that I think we're gonna find out that we may not have this money. And I'm just not in favor of spending any more money until we know where we're going with what we already spent before we start allocating money for some other program. I don't disagree with the program. I think it's probably a good program, and I think we need the program. But we've got to get our finances together before we begin adding more issues.
So if there's a minimal cost, you'd be in favor of it?
No, not until we find out a way to pay for what we've already spent.
If the program's free, you're in favor of it?
No, there's nothing free in this world.
Well, you just said that you agree with the program, you think it's a great program, you don't want to pay
That's
for it.
why I said a while ago, is let's get it, if we want to do it, let's get everything ready to go, and when there's finances ready to be brought forward by the council that wants to raise taxes to get it, then we're ready to go.
So without the rental inspection program, I'm asking if there is a way to absorb the cost without it being an increase in anything, you're not in favor of it?
I'm in favor of it if we can work out what we already have spent for all the projects that we've already allocated for. And we haven't done that yet. And I've heard other
Gene and
members
Jake,
of this
I
council
think
say
we
the
can,
same thing.
I think we can narrow it down to, let's get authority to do this without spending any money. Let's do ordinances, whatever we need to put it in place, and then whenever it gets ready to be triggered, council finds the money. I don't know, what do you think, Doug?
We can certainly get the ordinance in place, and we can have it in draft form for council.
Excuse me a minute, Doug. Bill?
I don't agree, Mayor. I'm sitting here and I'm hearing about property maintenance, rental maintenance. And if you're gonna institute property maintenance, that's still gonna take a body. It's gonna take somebody to manage that. So I don't see where you're eliminating anything, and nobody's just gonna give us $250,000. So nothing is free. We gotta decide whether you want the program or you don't want the program. It's very simple. And my concerns is kinda like Councilman T. Waltz. You know, I'm looking at next year's budget, and I keep bringing up my sheets. And I look at it every month. And I agree with the Councilman T. Waltz again. We have not sat down and been very serious about these projects in front of us. Councilman Gillespie beats me over the head about $1.3 million. I showed you where it was. We got projects that need to be either paid off or decide what we're gonna do financially. But we just keep kicking the can down the road like previous administrations for the last 30 years. And I don't agree with that. This property maintenance is not going to happen unless you put the money in it to make it happen.
Now, my suggestion was to move forward with what we need to have it to go into place once the council finds the money, not to enforce at this moment, but to do our ordinance, whatever avenues we need to take to get it ready, so when we're ready to do it, it'll be done. Does that make sense?
I heard being said.
Does that make sense, guys?
Well, we got a few things to say. I'm impatient.
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead, Gary.
As far as kicking the can down the road, we have all came in here as a council they said that we wanted to talk about it, for, how to pay for some of these.
Yes, we're working on that.
So it's not really a matter of kicking the can down the road. We've got some things right now that we gotta get ironed out, and then we'll be more than glad to have that conversation.
Chris?
Okay, so I'm trying to wrap my mind around several thoughts. Not trying to insult anybody, but I've been working on this for 4 years, so I can sense there is a lot of ignorance. I've been trying to educate. Jeremy's been trying to educate. Doug's been trying to educate. The education's not getting through. We're talking about ordinances that already exist and so forth. Bottom line, I'm not here to win any favoritism or convince anybody. You just simply, as a group, as individuals, have to figure out what's priority. Is it roads, is it projects, is it budgets, is it getting elected, or is it cleaning up this town so that it's actually worth living in? You say you want to protect homeowners, protect them. You say you want the town to have revenue, increase the property value. I mean, it's a surefire way. You know, people feel hopeless. I've said that before. People feel hopeless. They come out in droves for a hospital, for a birthing center, but they also come to me in my house on a weekly basis about this issue, and that's for 4 years. And I know you can speak to the same. They do. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to take 4 years for a whole new council or what, but I promise you this will come to pass if it doesn't come with this council. It would be a damn shame if it doesn't, because it's too easy to resolve. He just mentioned a no-cost option, and we're not even willing to take it. We're not even willing to adopt state code that already exists from the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's not hard. You just have to take action, and action follows priority. So it sounds like dollars are priority in projects, but I feel like I just feel like that's half-sided. So, I mean, the information's here to make the decision. We don't need to have any more meetings. We need to figure out what we want to do. And that's it. And that's been the case for about a year now.
Jake, final thoughts?
No, I'm in favor of the property maintenance, and I think it's short-sighted to say that something costs, therefore we're not going to do it. I mean, look at all the little things that we talk about, 50,000 here, 100,000 here. We figure out ways to make it happen. I think we're fighting in a box if you feel like it's all about cost. I think there's creative ways to make something happen, to get it off the ground, figure it out from there, and then move forward. I agree with Councilman Seawalk. Hiring somebody right now turns into 1.5 FTEs, turns into $200,000, turns into benefits and everything else like that. And I'm skeptical of that decision, and I agree with that. But I feel like there's ways that we have particular buildings in mind with the dilapidated buildings that we can start working on. And as the City of Winchester said, you can't, go after people on these things. You got to kind of be a little bit more reactive and move into it. And I think we take time. It might take a year, it might take 2 years to start working towards it. And people might become more comfortable with the rental inspection program. We implement that and start working on our surrounding buildings. But I agree with Councilman Morrison that you want more taxes. Let's have higher values in our buildings. They're constantly lowered by the surrounding buildings and people who let their properties crumble.
John, afterthought?
Property values for me always are going to come secondary to good infrastructure, roads, sewer, electric, water. We don't have a town if we don't have those things.
You don't have
So-
houses either.
Granted.
We're citizens.
But people are relying on us first and foremost to get our projects done. So if we have to choose between those two, I'll always choose the projects. I agree with just about everything that Councilman T-Wall said this evening. I'm interested in taking a good hard look through our books to try and find ways to pay for the police department and radios for the police system, because I think those things have a higher priority for me.
Well, Joe, it sounds like we got a 4-2 consensus. Let's put this on the back burner for 2 months. Move forward with getting projects, finding out how we're going to finance this stuff. And I think that will help. Bill, do you think that'll help to eliminate some of this financial I mean, I don't want it to go away.
Well, if
because-
we're gonna use financials as a logic, then everything it's gonna cost us needs to be put on the back burner until we resolve how we're gonna pay for things. And that includes $500,000 for radios and everything else like that. Like, you can't use that as a one-sided argument towards everything we're doing.
I'm not gonna use that as a one-sided argument. I am for property maintenance, I'm for rental concerns. I have seen those dilapidated, I have relatives that live in some of those buildings that we're talking about. But, I'll still come back to, when you put a program in, you gotta be willing to pay for it. And that's all I'm saying. I'm willing to pay, but a lot of us are not willing to step up. And that's the problem.
Until seems like we get this financial block out of our way, then we can move forward on property
But
maintenance.
you're gonna be saying that for everything that comes up that cost.
I hope I don't have to repeat myself in 2 months. I mean,
In
it seems
about
like.
10 minutes, we're gonna
it
be
seems
talking about
like-
something that's gonna
Yeah,
cost.
well, you know, it seems like we keep revolving around the police department. We always mention paying back. We had a $50 million project that we just finished up at the wastewater. We had to pay on that. But nobody never kept revolving around where we were gonna get $50 million. We made it happen. Staff made it happen. And with the police department, whether or not this new market tax credit falls or doesn't fall, if it falls, we're gonna have to pick up the pieces. And it's just that simple. This is our job. This is our job to find the finances. We can't tax our citizens to death, so
You just said something that apparently you don't know what you're talking about. No offense to you. We raised sewer for about 4 years in a row.
Yes, we did.
To be able to spend $55 million.
I remember.
And that reflects right back to the taxpayer.
that's what I said. Nobody claimed that we did it.
That's what I keep saying. We want to spend, but we don't want to raise. The only way to raise money for these projects that we're talking about is through real estate and property, personal property, and meals tax and that. This is not an enterprise fund. None of this is for the enterprise fund. That's how you do it on enterprise. You can raise rates, electric rates, water rates, sewer rates, garbage rates. But you can't raise the rates on enterprise fund. I mean, on money that comes directly from real estate and the tax burden.
And everybody understands that it comes out of the general fund. The police department's gonna come out of the general fund. Hopefully the tax credit's gonna come through, but we don't know that until it happens. But right now, we're drawing against it, the county's drawing against it, and we're moving forward, so.
Again, we just can't keep spending with the assumption that something's gonna happen. I don't think any of us in here goes out here and buys a new home and don't have a way or possibly a way of paying their mortgage on it each month, or car, or whatever. And we're no different than our own personal lives, guys. We can't keep spending when we don't have funds to pay for it and get it back, unless it comes back through the taxpayer.
Joe, put it
I
on the
just
back
don't
burner
see
for
it.
2 months, and we'll bring it back up in 2 months.
In a work
Let's move
session?
on, let's move on to the radio system.
Work session, 2 months.
Yes. We'll see where we're at with finances and general fund, because we could beat this to death all night.
What was your thoughts on it, Halls?
I thought we need it. Council's been wanting to get rid of these derelict buildings and property maintenance, and, I mean, it's definitely needed, but I would have to side with the other 4 too as far as financing. You know, we need to make sure we have the money, so. And if we do it, we gotta do it right. We can't have half pieces. Correct, Gene? If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it. And tonight, we're not gonna resolve anything, and I'm not gonna waste staff's time to keep trying to keep working on it if the council's not willing to move forward with it, so.
Well, Mayor, I hear what you're saying, but I have yet to hear the staff tell me what the steps are to implement. Do they want the full program? Do they want half the program? How do you get it started? And
Property maintenance.
It was a nice little thing that Doug and the director put together, but it really didn't tell me anything. The only thing I picked up out of there was they had a resource committee, and 45% of our properties are rentals. You know, I want to know how we're going to implement this thing. You know,
Jeremy just said property maintenance will be the
I
first
can
step.
agree with Mr. Meza. let's go ahead and implement, but understand what you're implementing. And I know I've read that thing, and it is very cumbersome. I mean, you have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to understand that thing. So don't tell me I haven't read it, because I have read it. I haven't lived it like you, but I do know what I read. And I highlighted, and I read and reread, and it is cumbersome. You really have to understand what you're talking about in there. Now, until this gentleman behind me tells me these are the steps, then that's how you convince me. You just don't come in here and say, let's have a property maintenance program. No, we're not gonna do the rental one. Let's find out what the steps are.
Joe?
Yeah, next time we approach staff with this, we'll take all the comments said today and try to bullet point that, which is doing property maintenance. We'll try to look at what the cost that would impact would be, as well as the steps. We'll lay it out for next time.
Good deal.